Daniel Greenberg speaking. I'm the Rosetta product manager, and I'm proud to present Rosetta release 5.4, which is officially, it is not a major release, but it does in actual fact include many new features and improvements in all the areas of Rosetta. The enhancements originate from institution requests through Exchange or through the working groups. And in addition, there are ongoing improvements and enhancements which were initiated by the team. So a brief overview of what we'll be seeing today. The area. There were quite a few improvements. The one which I will highlight today is the upgrade to Solar 6.5 in the area. The ability to manually assign any file format on the event of an extension mismatch. Significant improvement is the capability to run bulk operations on multiple files in the technical analyst workbench. That preserves the file timestamp during ingest. Area. We have the ability of institutions to customize the SRE response according to their desire, and it can configure their SRW requests to require authentication. In the management area, we added the ability to send emails, jobs to many jobs which didn't have that capability up to now. And management, we added an important feature related to shared users. In the area, talking about the general IE viewer, which has gone through significant redesign, and in addition, we will see that how institutions can configure the DC fields in the viewer. In the area, both for metadata extractor script plugins, and now they have the capabilities of other parallel also in Java code, and the Vera PDF as a technical metadata extractor plugin. Interface area, we did major improvements in the beer tables UI, as we will see soon. Okay, so we will start with the infrastructure. We upgraded Solar to 6.5, and 6.5 it includes various improvements, new features, optimizations and bug fixes. So Solar is stopping to support, on this version it stops supporting deployment in a user-provided container, and that works now only as a standalone server. And we'll go through the release notes, etc., to see anything which the institution needs to take notice of regarding Solar. Okay, so we'll now move on to preservation. And the first feature in preservation is the ability to manually assign a file format, any file format, on extension mismatch. Extension mismatch correction rules are now part of the format correction rules, and no longer have a unique rule type. We'll do a quick demo of this feature. So today, we now have identification correction, and the extension mismatch correction rules are no longer a separate section. So today, when the validation stack fails due to the extension mismatch, the user is now able to set any alternative PUID, the pronom unique identifier, the persistent unique identifier. So you can see here, for example, in the views. So we have several files. And we'll take Barcelona, for example, where the file extension, this was a file mismatch. All right. can assign any formats. Any format. So we'll run a second because actually the next feature, which is also related in this area, is, as I said before, the ability to run bulk operations in the TA workbench. Now, up to the ability to make these bulk operations was only in the rules area, which allowed to run operations across SIPs and across a system, which isn't always desirable, as the operations are sensitive ones, especially when it comes to signing formats, etc. So the feature now allows to run these changes in the context of a specific SIP. The different actions which are now possible to do in a bulk are actions like assign file extension, assign format, etc. That we'll see here, for example, first need to, as we saw, the error is error 17. In order to perform a bulk operation, we first need to filter according to that error, enabling to run across the entire SIP, all the files, because again, it isn't desirable to run a dual format action on different error types. So a prerequisite is first to filter according to a specific error. Have the file which failed only on error 17. We see that we have the option of bulk operations format, execute. So we design, and we have autofill. So the there's no more files which currently have that error, as we manually assign 43, which is the JPEG, to all those files. So should certainly reduce the amount of duplicate work done in the TA workbench. A feature we will talk about is the ability to preserve a file timestamp during ingest. The file modification date, it will return the source file system value, both in the Rosetta technical metadata and the target file system. Technical metadata, the DNX last modified value is now set with the file system value during the different action types, NFS, FTP, SFTP, and HTTP acquisitions. We'll move on to the search enhancements which we made in the system. So one, as I mentioned at the beginning of the demo, is that institutions can now custom the SRU response according to their needs. So you can enrich the DC record with any additional information that they would like from the AIP. For example, we take a look at this request. We can be looking for IEs with the specific title of Northwestern, and we get two different IEs from two different institutions. For example, that we have an object identifier, which is, by the way, now default. Each institution will be sending the object identifier in an SRU response. But this can be configured, it can be removed if the institution desires. If we decide, for example, that we want to remove this object identifier and replace it, for example, with the producer information, then this now can be configured. So if we to the deposits delivery XSL files, SRU IE XSL can be edited. Object. So we have the object identifier section. This defines the object identifier, which is sent back, included in the SRU response. Snippets I have here for including the producer information. Replace the object identifier. Produce information. Okay, that, and we go back to our query. Run. There you go. We have the producer information instead of the object identifier. So that is the one major enhancement in the SRU. In addition to that, we added the capability to authentication to the SRU or SRW requests. So a customization which we just saw was per institution. The authentication now we'll be seeing is per institution, per consortium. It's in the administration. So if we take administration, we now have general parameters by authentication. RU authentication. We can set true by that defining that every SRU requires authentication. And go back to the query. Okay, we do not get the response now, as we need to authenticate ourselves. So, first of all, the instructions for how to create a header for authenticating the instructions and the developers network. You can see here in the SRU. There's here in the authentication section of how to use the actual code to add header. But the principle here is that we have a base 64 presentation, our institution information, institution code, the password, etc., and that needs to be added to the header. So I have a header here. You can give me that this is the base 64 of the specific institution which we logged in here. The name of the request of the header is authorization. It's a note here that the authentication was defined for the consortium for all institutions in that installation, but obviously the authorization is per institution. So we'll now enable it and re-query just from for the single IE which we just enabled and added the header for. So it's back to false. Should require authentication anymore. Now, get used for both institutions. So those are the two features significant features which have been added to the search area. And move on to the data management. So we've added the capability in 5.4. We've added emails to schedule jobs. Up to now, Rosetta enabled sending emails at the end of the data management processes. You can see under the of them, parameters. We can take the ability to send emails here, but there were requests coming through from many institutions and customers asking to expand the capability for other jobs, central jobs in the system, and now include the option to send an email also for submission, job, OAR harvester, update metadata, creating a derivative copy, and startup checks. So if we'll take one of them, for example, create metadata job, one for example. So as you can see, we have the capability now to send the email here, and similarly to the other ones, the options are either we cannot send it, or we can send it, or only on failure. For example, the output of this one would be in Libris, defining the different job parameters, the duration of the job, the log, which currently was assessed, so not much information there. So that was added, as I said, to quite a few central jobs in the system. All right, so we'll now move on to the user management area, and here we added a feature which with the shared users. And institutions, they can now decide whether to keep their staff users private or share them, and then other consortium members to assign them roles, or view together, which we'll see in a minute. Each user has this existing behavior. Each user has an owner, which is the institution, by default, institution which created him, as the consortium by default. Only the owner can share or unshare its users. Will allow institutions to control exposure of their users to other institutions, and in the future may be expanded for further needs of institutions. So we'll take a look how this is done. If we look at the user management, choose any type of user, star for example, and when we add the user, we can have that user as shared or unshared. So sharing is obviously easier. You can share only a user which you own. To unshare, so there are a few strict rules for unsharing. And first of all, only the owner can unshare. If it is a staff user, then the condition for unsharing that staff user is if he does not have any roles in multiple institutions. In that case, if the owner would like to unshare that user, all those institutions would have to remove the roles from that staff member. If it's not a staff member but a contact, then if that contact is connected to multiple producers from different institutions, then also he is not unshareable. So those are the few conditions which are required: not to be connected and be assigned roles, or be connected to multiple producers from different institutions. Now, they created a slight side effect where up to now, user created a new institution, he was granted a user management role for the institution. Obviously, it has to be shared. So to avoid the situation, now on, each new institution automatically creates a virtual user, which is an admin and then the institution code with the default password. So, I mean, I won't show you the flow of creating a new institution, but when you do create a new institution, you will get this message which informs you of this virtual user, which was created specifically for creating the institution, and after that does not have any much meaning. So we're not affecting and we're not influencing a shared property on an existing physical user. So here we have the new credentials for the user. So to a new institution, this is an admin institution 07. Which is another institution in the which is the same consortium as the one which we've been running the demo on up to now. I've now entered this institution with this demo, with this virtual member who created the institution. So he can only manage users and schedule reports, and these users. This institution and members. So, for example, if we take A.A. Milne, who obviously started working in the institution quite a while ago, update that user. As you can see, can't unshare that user, and the reason is mentioned here when I hover over the marking of the shared. User can be unshared only by its own institution. Since I'm the owning institution of that user, they cannot unshare that user. And if it would be for a different reason, if, for example, I would be the owner of that user, but he would have roles in other institutions, then that would be the reason which would be displayed here. Now what I can do is I can go to the owning institution. So we have A.A. Milne, update the user. I'm here because I am the owner of this user. Now turn to the institution where this belongs to. Then user now, because it's shared, and to view or assign any roles to this user. Important note is that regarding the service pack, use of existing institutions will be to compromise the existing functionality, and users will be unshared by default. Now, in case there's an institution who would like to share all their users, so we have added a script which does that. So if you would like to do that, then please turn to support, and you'll be provided with a script. So on to the delivery area. We added a general IE viewer. Enhancements and many improvements in this area. Quite a few features here which are requested by customers. So a quick demo of the improvements which were made here. If we take a look at the presets, IE viewer. I don't know if you remember the previous IE viewer, if you have it in your mind, but there was the pane on the side, the left pane, which described the structure, the content structure, and the image. So I now added the descriptive information pane side by side to the image, and which obviously makes makes it much more comprehensible, the viewing experience. Each one of these panes can be closed or expanded. So you can see here, if we take a look, for example, at the flower string, then we have right pane, we have the metadata level, and we have metadata on the file level. Both can be collapsed and uncollapsed. In addition, we have an easy linking between the different files, skipping between different files. We have the full view mode, but we had also up to now, but now we have the full screen, sort of semi-full screen, which now includes also the toolbar and different actions which can be done. We have download all, which is agreeable. The all option can be removed in the administration. If we take a quick here, the admin. Unmark the download all, which will then remove the option to download in the viewer. So, and it includes the download percentage, which will give you, this one's pretty quick, but as you see, give you a good idea of when your download will complete. Now, in addition to that, we have the ability. So that's those are the major major additions which were done in the IE viewer, and we now to add the capability configure to configure the metadata, the DC fields in the viewer. So the institutions can now select the metadata fields displayed the IE and the representation viewers and their order. User-friendly UI, which I'll show you in a second, and the viewer labels can become customized and translated. So, for example, one of these. So as you can see, we have the description here, the title, and the owner. But if, for example, I decide that the owner doesn't interest me, and I would like to have the title above the description, and this can be configured. I go to this, deliver data fields. Say metadata. We want to remove the owner. Sorry. There we go. Now, let me change the order. So I have that above the description. Like that. Save those changes. The owner was removed, and now the title is above the description. There are more enhancements coming through also in the next release relating to this. We'll see you soon. So what we'll be talking about is plugins. Area, we have added the support for metadata extractor script plugins. So Rosetta now includes a script plugin interface for metadata extraction, significantly facilitating the capability to add non-Java extractors. And an XSD is provided to validate the plugin's responses. And so basically we have capabilities to the other plugins, and that we are limited to Java ones. We implemented VeraPDF as a table metadata extractor plugin. VeraPDF is an open source conformance checker for the PDF files, and it is now implemented as one of Rosetta's metadata extractors and validators. VeraPDF is designed to help institutions check that their PDFA collections conform to the appropriate archiving standard specifications. So a quick example of an out of the one of the checks of the VeraPDF. You can see here that PDF has recognized a specific error in the PDF, and there, as you all know, the PDF, a PDF is a very, very complex format which has many different errors, and this was following a long investigation done by the working groups, and it was finally decided on going forward with the VeraPDF, which you can start using 5.4. So those are the few highlights from the plugins area, and just a few words on the user interface, which we'll finish with. In the user interface, we have the new Beer Tables UI. It's been improved across many reports, enhancing their usability. If we take, for example, the reports, so I'm not sure if you can remember the reports, the previous reports, but they were now cleaned up, and there were a few tables, which duplicate tables, which were now unified to one single SIP history table, comprehensible and clear. So it's done for quite a few viewers. Yeah. The falls at risk. So this cleaned up and now is much more comprehensible. So let's finish off with just a few words on the 2018 release plan. We're currently analyzing several major features from the idea exchange and work groups, and the plan is for the work groups to publish the enhancements around March. Therefore, we will release a minor release around mid-April, which will include, as you'll see soon, improvements and in certain areas and stabilization, and another one at the end of the year, which should cover some major features. You can see here, we will be getting the 5.5 in April and the 6th major one at the end of the year. Highlights which we'll be seeing in 5.5 in the digital asset management, we'll be seeing support for persistent identifier for the handle generation and pre-generated and generated inside Rosetta and publishing to the handle server, and we'll be seeing improvements to the administration UI, GDPR compliance for the European institutions. We'll be seeing removal of deleted OI sets in the position area. We'll be seeing some improvements to the format library release cycle, the ability to run repository tasks at the rep or the higher level. There will be upgrades. Tomcat will be upgraded to 8.5, and there will be performance improvements. And in the handle persistent identifier management, so they'll be able to institutions to then just the pre-generated handle, generate them in Rosetta using the repository task plugin running on a sequence manager, and will then publish identifiers an external handle PI server. Six, a few words on what will be in the major one, which again, this is dependent on the outputs of the work groups, which haven't been finalized yet, but we'll be seeing we will see new APIs for multiple format identification tools. Some events will be improvements, and then the TA workbench, and the general improvement in the preservation flows, and infrastructure. We'll be seeing support for Oracle 12.2. We'll be having more enhancements in the user experience and the performance ongoing improvements. So I hope you enjoyed the 5.4 round. Feel free to send me any questions by email or pick up the phone. and good luck to everyone. Enjoy the 5.4 release. Thank you.